centuries, the Society of the Black Dragon has sanctioned an ancient rite of combat known as the Kumite, open only to the world's most lethal warriors. It has never been won by a Westerner.
You are not Japanese. I can do it.
Now, for the first time, the true story of America's super agent can be revealed.
Hi, this is Ross Payton with Role Playing Public Radio. This is RPPR, episode 66, Building Better Worlds. And with me, as always, is Tom Church.
Now, it's watching you, it's like watching Ron Burgundy in that opening scene, like Unique New York. The Human Torch was denied a bank loan. It's like you're doing enunciation exercises.
I have to say, I feel sorry for the Human Torch. It's discriminatory practices. So.
No, they just burn the fucker down.
Redlining. So, anyways, we're back. We have a lot to talk about. This episode is going to be talking about world building. What not to do and what to do when constructing your own world, and what by world we don't necessarily mean entire planet or whatever.
Whether city, planet, galaxy, whatever.
Wherever your campaign takes place, that's world building.
Pocket dimension in a broom closet or something.
Yes, that's exactly. Or it could be an actual room. If you're like, it's Little Fears, everyone's playing a toy, and you're in the little boy's room, but that's it. It's Toy Story, but with goblins.
And demons.
And demons, of course.
And Lovecraftian horror.
It has to be a grimdark Toy Story.
And Lovecraftian horrors from beyond time and space.
And now people are like, Ross, why don't you run that? So...
Why don't you run that, Ross?
I'm a monster. That's why.
You'd be perfect for this.
Yes.
Yeah, you'd be very good in haunting a little kid's room, too.
No, that's...
It's like, tell me, Billy, do you like Sartre? And... Go away, mean monster.
Yes, let's talk about Adorno. Let's talk about the critical theorist. You see, everything you've been told is a lie of the capitalist system to keep you in place.
And you can literally see the goth makeup forming on his face.
Or the libertarian. He's like, Fountainhead, get away from me. Atlas Shrugged.
And then you hiss. And
basically, yeah. So anyways, in the news, the Killsplosion Kickstarter is off to a very good start.
Very nice start, yeah.
The minimum goal has been made for $1,250. Right?
Made the hell out of it.
$1,650, I believe. Now, if you read the Kickstarter, we're still wanting to exceed that goal because at $2,000, I'll release an expansion to go along with the game, Zombies versus Humans.
My God, zombies!
I know. I'm a one-track broken record, so... but at $2,500, we'll get a video camera for RPPR and record a lot of great content, including Artemis Spaceship Simulator, conventions, interviews, panels, game demos.
And just imagine making Aaron be the captain and him giving out orders that none of us respect.
I would. I'm like that's you. That's the.
Well, I'm not going to respect anyone playing captain.
Okay. You're just going to be like, I'm going to shoot everything, and I'm Tom, and. I'm blah, blah. We're going to put you on communications, Tom. That's it. That's all you're going to be. You're just going to sit
You don't want me to do that, Ross.
Why not?
Every time we're being hailed, it's like, hey, fags, what's up?
I don't think hey, fags is part of the game. I think there are certain...
Well, I'm going to say that.
Well, yeah. I've actually found out Artemis Spaceship Simulator, and what's really great is you can set up multiple ships in the same little server or whatever. So we could actually do a PvP thing where you have half the RPPR crew as one spaceship and the other one. So we could actually have a spaceship death match.
Now, can you imagine that, people?
Can you imagine that?
Well, if we make the goal, you won't have to imagine it. You'll get to see it.
Yeah, we'll figure out how to do that. I'll bring friends over. We'll get as many people as we can.
And we'll have booze.
Well, yeah, it will... it will be insane.
Everyone will get all nice and plastered before we start.
Yeah. So keep on. And also, this isn't just for us. It's for you. If you are an AP fiend, you should donate so you can get early access to preview episodes months ahead of time. We have an entire World of Darkness campaign, 6 episodes. We also have Caleb's Dirty World playtest of his Gen Con scenario, The Dangers of Fraternization. I just got a message on Twitter today saying, I like this so much, I thought I would have paid $20 just to listen to that episode alone. So,
and we're not telling you that gave us ideas or anything.
Yeah, no.
No. Ross, Yeah, Ross is not a capitalist, I assure you. He's in it for the art.
No. Why are you saying these things? They are lies.
I'm trying, Ross.
They're lies out of your mouth.
I'm trying to make...
Because speaking of that, Zombies of the World, the last episode
buy the
4,
book.
Buy the ebook or buy the book. The ebook's $2.99. I'm just going to leave it at $2.99. The book I raised to $69.95. Still free shipping, and I will still autograph it if you want it autographed.
Or so will all of us.
Yes, and so will all the RPPR crew. But the ebook is $2.99. It's a great book. Kenneth Haidt just reviewed it. He loved it. He thought it was great. It's Kenneth Haidt. He wrote GURPS Horror. He wrote so many things. You don't even know.
$2.99.
He wrote Trail of Cthulhu. The man who wrote Trail of Cthulhu liked my book.
And think about it. You can't even get 2 20-ounce bottles of soda for $2.99.
Yeah. So just get the PDF. All 10 million of you. That's the RPPR audience.
Oh, that's the goal.
Slight exaggeration.
So that's the goal you want.
Yeah, that's a projection.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think we are hoping to get the entire New York metropolitan area.
Yeah, I think we can do that.
And the country,
I think they're all big zombies.
and the whole country of Norway.
I think we can. Yeah, we've got one person from Norway at least. So I already mentioned that.
It just takes one.
I know.
To open the doors.
It's an infection. Yeah. So I think that's enough news. We poured enough of you poured listeners to it. Let's get on to the main show topic, which is world building. Which is Tom. You came up with the idea.
I did because I thought about this because I have had to do building on many scales lately for games.
Yeah.
Yep. There's like one I'm working on now, which is a like an underground city type setting, where I had to design an underground city underneath New York, populated by monsters.
Monsters, really, Tom?
I know. Get this in the game.
Yeah.
You play citizens of this city.
Really? You
Yeah.
just got that from that Punisher thing they did like a year ago.
I'm not going to say that it wasn't. It didn't have. it didn't have some form of inspiration on me.
Right.
But yes, that's what I'm doing.
I'm just gonna play a normal person in that.
You can't.
Man, what do you mean? Man is the worst monster of all.
And you're the good guys, Ross.
No.
Well, my God, I mean that
Yeah.
ideally.
Did I just blow your mind?
No, Ross, you disappointed me.
Damn it. Anyway.
But also, I'm currently running a sci-fi game where it's a galaxy-wide space opera.
Yeah.
So I had to design everything for that, and obviously that's many, many planets and many star systems.
Right.
And as I realized, you can't design one exactly like the other.
A galaxy and a city are designed differently?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
This is... I don't know what to say. This is madness.
Is your mind blown?
My mind, yes. It is blown. So tell us more about this.
Well, what I've discovered is... with the smaller the world you're designing,
Yeah.
the more detail you put into it,
Right.
because you can and you should. Like in the case of the underground city, I got most of the prominent citizens, some of the marketplace. I've got the way you get down there, the leaders. I got all kinds of stuff because it's important. Because if you're living in that place, you probably should know that.
Right.
As for the space game, essentially, I have all the home worlds. I have some of the bigger space stations and some of the hive of scum and villainy type places.
Right.
But otherwise, I don't. Unless the players are gonna go to that place in a session, I don't really worry myself with too many details.
We're going to go to the place that you didn't describe. We're going to go to that one place that is not any of the places you've mentioned.
The great thing about that is if they're first just arriving on it, you can kind of bullshit your way out. Just all right, think of a quick planet, color of the sky. Does that breathe atmosphere? Get that stuff done.
It's plaid. Everything is plaid. That's
it. Ross, you're a player thinking you know things about my game. You don't. But no, that I can do that in a pinch. And
right.
But if it's one place that you're just the whole campaign is gonna stay in, you probably should know most of the details about that. And that's what I found.
So basically, so the smaller the area is relatively, the more detail you have. The larger it is, less detail. So basically, if you want to be, a math nerd about it, is the amount of details you have, relevant bits of information is constant. It's just the density. If you let's
it's
say,
what your eye can see.
Right, 50 pieces of information, 50 details. In a city, that's going to be pretty, dense. But in a galaxy, they're going to be pretty sparse. Yeah. So if you want to think about it that way, I mean that kind of that's one good way of doing it. Now, what I do usually is whenever I sit down to design a world, a setting, I think the first thing I can think about is the theme, or why am I interested in running this? Why do I want to spend all this time on this area? For example, New Arcadia, I wanted to do a superhero thing, but I wanted to have this different take on it, where basically there are no wipe the slate clean of heavy movers and shakers. The Superman and the Doctor Doom types. So,
but all the toys are still there.
All the toys are still there. So I start focusing on the thematic content, like what's important to that. So I think about, how do people get superpowers? What are the sources of normal people getting superpowers? How does government respond to that? So I sort of take and then I talk about the city is going to take place in. So it's like half content and then half the city.
Something I like is also how the political pundits see it.
Yeah.
I really love the stuff you do with like the Rush Limbaugh types, the people on AM radio, what they have to say about these metahumans.
So that's the kind of that's what I do.
These costume heroes are like they're just blathering about, not letting the real authority, not eating.
Yes,
that's
Smith becomes.
Well, that's my Rush Limbaugh impression.
Can't.
I know, God.
I thought you were going to justify the Lord's Resistance Army in Africa. So, that's
my acting skills can only go so far.
Inside baseball joke type thing. Basically, that's the main idea, is to focus on that kind of content, and then of course, then the amount of information I do is probably about similar to you. The amount of work I put in, because the main thing that. So either you can look about the area and think about how dense it's going to be, or you can think about the theme and focus on that. For me, it's like, what are the players going to hit first? What's going to be the stuff that's actually going to be trod out? Because the central thing in world building is you have to police yourself police yourself over your use of creative energies. Because no matter how brilliant or inspired you are, you do not have a limitless source of creativity and energy in which to do this.
And I had a problem on that one time.
Yeah,
I believe I was actually running a Star Wars game at the time, so this was a while ago. And I came up with this planet that the players were going to, and I put a week's worth of work into it, just thinking I had this, the shape of the continents. I had what they were called. I had, like the names of geographical locations. I had mountain ranges. I had the cities. I had the factions. I had what color the sky was at what time of day. Where the sun rose and set. I mean, I thought this shit out, and when I sat down to play, the players got through that section of the game in about 2 hours.
2 sessions or 2 hours?
Oh, sorry, 2 sessions.
2 sessions. Yeah.
And after that, gone. And let me tell you, they could not give two shits about some of the stuff I had thought up. And but the great thing is, I think, a great thing for me is I realized this and didn't try to push it.
Right.
I realized, all right, they're just interested in the mission. This is just fluff. So let's just get them through the mission. Right.
You were able to adjust on the fly, even though. So you had to, be. I mean, that's the main thing is we said this before, is that you have to be willing to kill your darlings. Mm-hmm. You have to be willing to sacrifice material you've prepared if it's going to improve the game. You have to be, if it's not going to help the game, like adding in stuff about when the sun sets. Mm-hmm. You spend 5 minutes looking at a chart. Well, you're here and the sky is.
The sun is at the current aphelion of...
Yeah. You can't really do that. Now, this is a reoccurring problem I see a lot in not just role-playing games, but in fiction and fantasy and sci-fi, where authors, creative types, get really, really fucking obsessive over world building. They really get into designing the same thing you did, but imagine putting months or even years of work into this stuff. I mean, you've seen that too.
Yeah.
People detailing their campaign history,
sci-fi and fantasy novels particularly.
Well, the thing is, that's okay if you can get it published, and if you have a 600-page novel that takes place on a single world, and it's a really complex idea, and you have a lot of stuff in there. I can understand that, because if you can write a 600-page novel, and you're a good enough writer to get it published, then yeah, I can get that. Mm-hmm. Tolkien is the greatest example of that, and that's what a lot of people. But
you don't fuck with him.
Right, but most people aren't Tolkien. Tolkien was a linguist and a medieval historian, and knew his shit. And
I've read some authors that want to be him, but are clearly not. But no one's bothered.
But Tolkien was also a good storyteller too, and that's the thing, is he was good at telling stories. He was able. there are two different skill sets, world building and actually storytelling, and you can't confuse the two. You can't decide that because you know where the tectonic plates are on your world and what color the sky is at 5:45 on the continent of Azure, on the western shores. That
Dude, have you been reading my shit?
Yeah, I know, right? That you're suddenly a good storyteller. That's not storytelling. That's just information. And that's like getting a little fucking OCD if you think that's more important than telling a good story.
Yeah, you remember the I'm gonna
providing a good
I'm
environment
gonna
for
pimp
players.
Patton Oswalt's book.
Yeah.
And his audio book when he was talking about the actual part of it, Zombie Spaceship Wasteland, talking about the 2 Wasteland stories he wrote in high school. And he said the first one he wrote, he says, I spent the first 80 pages literally just equipping my character.
Right.
And he says, but after I realized I couldn't think of any more cool guns to equip him with, I lost interest.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's the kind of thing. It kind of gets into more of like outsider art if you spend more time, like by outsider art, for those of you who aren't art people, the outsider art is what you used to describe people who build like a church out of popsicle sticks, or builds the world's largest ball of yarn, or builds a Cadillac hinge, or that thing in Texas where it looks like Stonehenge but they use Cadillacs, cars.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking
I
about?
know what you're talking about.
That's outsider art, and those people, they really just like focusing on one thing and doing it for 20 years, and that's fine with them, but don't mistake it for what it is. I mean, it's outsider art. It's just world building. It's not a substitute for having a good campaign.
So what you're telling me you're telling me that the cars arranged like car hinge. There's no subtext in that.
Well, I mean, that's getting into art theory, but the idea is,
Let's discuss art theory, Ross.
car hinge. What it is not is, well, I mean, that's art and that's not telling a story. But the thing is, the guy who has 500 pages of talking about his imaginary fantasy world, and he details every single god, and he details, people like this. Everyone knows somebody like that who is like,
I'm on fanfic.net.
Yeah, exactly.
I've read it.
Right, exactly. That's, like, I know a lot of people here, I might be a little controversial. Have you heard of MS Paint Adventures?
Yes, I have.
Sometimes I look at that and I get lost in that. I mean, that's so abstract now. I like MS Paint Detective, but like Homestuck, I just got lost. I think the guy is getting a little too obtuse and esoteric, with all this crazy alternate dimensions, alternate universe stuff, alternate versions of different characters.
Death threat. You're getting a death threat.
I know, right?
Now.
I'm a monster. So you can
Word's
get
already
too in
spread
love
through
with
the internet.
The thing is, you can get in too love with your own work. And you have to be ready to like drop it if it's not going to improve the quality of the game.
Yeah.
And that's what you learn.
Yeah,
that's what you said.
Well, I've also learned that often your readers will get more obsessed with your work than you are.
Right.
I've seen a lot of that.
Oh yeah.
Well, not with my stuff,
Yeah.
but Mia Dell, the girl I've mentioned, the woman I've mentioned several times.
Right.
Yeah, some of her readers, they get really possessive with some of her characters,
Right.
and she finds that a little weird.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can see, like, again, with the audience fan interaction, that's one thing. But
she said, as I often tell her, sometimes they go a little misery on you.
Yeah. But I mean, that's sort of getting
that's off topic.
We're talking about like what the creator does, and the creator, the person who's building the world. You have to create what is important and necessary to make your campaign interesting, and then use that. I think a lot of people too. Also, when you come up with the idea for a world, like what I do is I come up with a concept first. The idea is like superhero game where everyone's.
I do the same thing.
Okay, so you come up with like a hook.
Using that planet that I over-designed.
Yeah. What was the initial thing?
My initial thing was planet run by corporations. Like, corporations are the government of this planet. There's an elected body that acts as the government, but they're the ones that run it. So,
right.
I think, okay, a corporate world. So, I went from there, essentially. They want to keep it beautiful. Like, this is a corporate world, but not factories.
Right.
So we want this
home office.
Yeah. So we want the cities to be clean, shiny constructions, the landscape pure and untouched, because everyone wants to look out and see a beautiful forest or whatever from their high-rise office. So I kind of went from there. It's all right. It's going to have no pollution, and then but working from that, I started breaking it down. By the original concept was a corporate world.
Right. What do you think is too much or too little detail? Like, in terms, or like, how much work do you do before you're satisfied?
Well, with that one, I think I reached that point.
Well, I mean, you mentioned that you did.
Well, I mean, I know I realized while making it, I realized I now have reached the point where I can now run this successfully as a game.
Right.
But this particular time, I was having so much fun doing it, I just didn't stop.
Okay.
No, I usually realize.
I was kind of following the trap we're talking about, like getting in love with your own work. And stuff.
Yeah, but I usually it takes me, if I'm just sitting down, no distractions, about an hour normally for me to get to. I think I got enough detail to run the game. Sometimes I go longer. Other times, there has actually been a few times I love the idea. In the first 20 minutes, but by the time I'm approaching 45 minutes, like, this is a piece of shit. I will fucking destroy this place. Actually, that happened one time. I was designing a place.
Yeah.
And I suddenly realized that I now hate this idea. Like, I'll destroy it and use that as a setting. And that worked.
Okay, reversing what you had, what was beautiful was now ugly. What was not on fire was on fire.
Yes.
So.
But as for actually that planet thing, it ended up working out for me because all the detail I had, I just turned around and used later in different things.
Yeah. I mean, you can always salvage or scavenge your material. And the reason I keep harping on not obsessing, because I just see it's very common for a lot of GMs to just create worlds and just fall in love with them. And
then sometimes that's all they got.
Right. Again, you can't confuse world building with storytelling. I think you and I have both been in at least one game where the GM would give us like a history lecture on like, in the beginning there was blah, blah, blah. And then
by the way,
happened.
But before we go any further, I must say we are not talking about Adam Scott Glancy. I enjoy his lecture. He's
not world building. He's just
telling us
this history
yeah.
lecture, and that's
But I love it.
Yeah, we do this. We're both.
I know, like some of you. I remember some people complained about the Zeppelin game.
Yeah,
and like you should have seen us. We were sitting there with rapt attention.
Well, we didn't record the Zeppelin game.
The U-boat House.
Yeah, U-boat House.
Yeah, I was another one. People said, "Man, he just really droned on about U-boats." Like we were sitting there. Like, go on.
That's actual information that exists.
But you're right. We both have been in games where I felt more like I was on a tour of where we were going rather than doing anything.
Right. And the thing is, then they have this it also sort of forces them into a corner. They have this preconceived idea of this is what the world is like. This is what the players will do in this, and this is what will happen. They get so rigid with this construction because they've put so much work into it that they don't let other people interact with it. Or
it leads into railroading.
Right. They're like, okay, well, we're going to go to the mayor. Yeah, okay, the players are going to go to the mayor, get the mission, and go and do that. The mayor's going to be an arrogant jerk, and that will be the first challenge. All right. And then the player's like, kill the mayor.
He's not going to give us what we want. We threaten him with guns.
Yeah, we set we set the office on fire, take hostages, and barricade the doors. What else? What did you think we're doing? We're paladins here. We're on a mission from God.
And that's just sometimes their attempt to rebound from that really is kind of sad.
Yeah,
like suddenly I remember there's one game we did it was a situation. I forget who it was. It wasn't a war. It was like a low level political leader on something.
Right.
And suddenly when we decided to get violent, suddenly he becomes like this, an uber assassin. Like,
right.
How do you think I got this political position? I am with the League of Assassins. Like, what?
Yeah. Well, another thing is the idea that, we've talked about, the difficulty of using an established setting for a game, like the Dresden Files, for example. Like, half the RPPR group has read the novels, or at least some of them, and about half of them haven't. And so we can't really do... Dresden File game would sort of have the problematic where, like, have you read the Dresden Files?
I have not.
Yeah, neither have I. Nothing against them. I'm reading right now Shadow of a Dead Star and McMafia, which I'll talk about later. So I've got a lot of shit on my reading list is what I'm trying to say. And so I'm not going to understand the significance of certain things that are happening. And like if you're running Dresden Files games and then blah, blah, blah walks in. I'm like, oh, or like if you're doing a Lord of the Rings game and you didn't know who Gandalf was. Like Gandalf shows up and saves you guys.
And suddenly half the group's like, oh, shit. And the other half, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Like I pull his beard.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he's got a magic staff. Fuck, that's the first magic item I've seen. I'm gonna wait till his back's turned to me, then I'm gonna stab him in the back because I want a fucking magic staff. Because that's how some people would act in a Lord of the Rings game.
What do you mean, some people?
A lot of people.
Dude, I'm the guy that whenever there was suggested, hey, do you want to? I mean, there's a Lord of the Rings RPG. You want to play it? Only if I can be an orc.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, no. Like, well, then I'm not interested.
Yeah, exactly. But that's if you're running. The thing is, this problem is exacerbated if it's literally a world that only exists in your own head. If Snargoth shows up and like you thought you've told the players like in the half-hour history lecture, like the mayor tells you the history of this, and then like 10 minutes of like Snargoth the Conqueror was bound and put to sleep, but woe to us if he ever shows up because man he'll wreck shit. Like, and players are like.
I'll give you a hint. If that's like 10 minutes into that discussion, your players have tuned it out by then.
Yeah. Players are really self-centered as a rule. If it's in combat, if it's not their turn, they're like, I don't care. If it's, not their skill challenge or not their scene, they're going to be like on their fucking smartphones or something like that. I'm not pointing at, fingers or naming
It's
names.
the whole RPPR group, man. Just admit that because it's true.
Well, yeah, some people are better about it than others. But in general, they're not going to pay attention to that because people play games to have fun, not to take notes. And
they want to have fun. They don't want it to be a lecture from college,
right? Unless it's Scott Glancing telling you about U-boats, then
which in case you shut the fuck up and listen.
Yeah, exactly, because that shit's great.
Because and also you're in those games, you're going to need that information.
This is true. So you can't really have that kind of. The impact you think you're having because the players aren't going to have the same connection to this world that you've built up in your head. So world building is really fun, and there are really when you get to really create a unique experience, something that's really wondrous, and something the players haven't experienced before. I think the new Arcadia campaign has certainly, I hope, has achieved that.
Yeah, the New World did it too.
Yeah, the New World because it was more political, and I had a lot of. Things in it, and
also, and you know us too. You know what we like. You're
right.
not so you. Well, I think, and also with our group particularly, we don't really run into that problem. And then they're going to do this. No, you can pretty well predict us.
Well, no,
you've gamed with us for so long,
right?
But the thing is, you don't design the game to focus on how you think we're going to do,
right?
But you leave it completely open.
I design it with I don't care which choice they'll make. I'm covered regardless of what they choose to do. Because also some of your decisions I can't predict. A lot of them I can't predict because, for one thing, I don't know exactly how you're going to arrive at a given area. Like if you rolled really poorly and you're really banged up, you might be more cautious than if you've been running combat and you've just been like, I've got 5 critical successes in a row. Every enemy's dead.
If I recall, I missed a lot in that game.
I'm just talking about in general. In general.
Yeah, I've seen the post on the forums.
I know.
I've seen it. But the thing is that you don't get flustered and have to do a GM fiat to reset things when we throw you for a loop.
Right.
The sign of a good GM is that's what makes a different topic entirely. But you come back quickly.
Right.
And also, you don't take us on tours of the world.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. You can't... the key to world building is to only build stuff that you'll use, not extraneous information. I know you're talking about some game you're talking about, like, he came up with new words for clouds.
Yes, actually. This was in the dark days of post-high school. So, yeah, there was a guy he was making... It was kind of a fantasy but dimensional hopping world. I forget what the sci-fi version of D&D is.
Alternity
or Spelljammer.
Well, Spelljammer is D&D with ships that go between worlds.
I think there was along the lines of that.
Spelljammer. Okay.
Yeah, this was a while. This was like a decade ago, but I remember this much.
Well, a decade ago was still third ed.
Yeah, so we landed on this planet. And he had literally thought up different names for clouds. Like he had a different name for a cumulonimbus or a cirrus or a cumulus cloud.
Okay.
And as you once said, I believe when I told you this, that which would have been fine if cloud magic or something was...
If clouds were important.
Yeah, if the clouds were important.
If they were like cloud elementals. And like, if it's a Snargoth, because I like using that word now.
You should.
If it's a Snargoth cloud, then you're fucked because it's poison. But if it's a Bargle cloud, a Herpaderp cloud, then it's like it's made of unicorn farts and it's magical and it will heal your wounds. So yeah,
is this the same unicorn and gazelle on a cloud in space?
I'd have to.
Yeah,
I'd have to.
But no, and the thing is, it just all it did was, and what sold it is the GM just had this look of like, I thought of that. What do you think of that? And we're all like, we fly through them.
Yeah, there's still clouds, right? They're not. We can't get experience or anything from them.
Like, do the clouds have treasure?
Yeah.
Like, does the Argle Bargle cloud? Does it rain diamonds that we can collect?
Is it made of solid air that we can walk on? And there's actually a dungeon in it because that would actually be really cool.
But no, but the thing is, you could tell he was so proud. He kept mentioning them. Like as we're now going along to get to the actual dungeon, which is in the ground.
Yeah. Actually, no, that's a really cool idea. Like, imagine a dungeon that's carved out of a cloud, and it's big enough that you have to sail your ship through it, your flying ship through it. And so you're doing the whole dungeon in your magic ship in a fucking giant cloud.
But see, that would have been a good idea, but he did not think of that.
Yeah, he did not think of good ideas. So.
But you did, Ross.
I know.
But
So
he just kept mentioning them, and the thing is, he actually got his the way clouds move wrong. Like he was throwing in the wrong types of clouds. He did he knew clouds were called cumulus and cumulonimbus and cirrus, but he didn't know what those meant. He was using.
Do.
Well, I remember a little bit from
you know enough from high school.
enough to know that the cumulonimbus is the big storm cloud.
Right.
He was calling out those are the high up wispy ones.
Yeah.
Like no, they're not.
And that made you angry.
No, it just made me sad.
And that also ruined your immersion for the game, right?
Well, yeah, we were too busy giggling over it every time he did it.
Right.
And apparently couldn't realize why we were giggling.
So, I mean, that's the
But
thing.
yeah, we were now then joking and talking about other stuff.
Right. The thing about world building is if you do it right, then you create an immersive world. The
Immerse
players,
me.
Yes, are suspended in this place that's very interesting, very exciting. They love adventuring in it, and it's kind of wondrous. And they wonder, and if it's your own creation, it's totally new. They're like, oh man, I wonder what's around the next corner. This could be great.
Yeah.
It's gonna be something badass and awesome. And they're just that's when gaming is at its best, when it's an original creation and
a cyberpunk game I was in,
Yeah.
and the guy, I mean, he really knew the slang of the Cyberpunk 2020 world.
Yeah.
And he kept using it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we all had the book, and we're flipping. We're now realizing what he says. So now we start trying to talk back to them in the same slang. It
got you in the mood for the game.
It got comical a little bit.
Yeah.
But after a while, we were now looking forward to just yelling at people in street slang of Cyberpunk 2020.
Yeah, and that's gaming at its best. That's the highlight of stuff. Now the problem and the thing is about we've been warning about all this. Going to overboard with world building. The thing is you can also do too little world building, especially like in D&D or fantasy worlds. If you're doing a really fantastic or sci-fi, and you do something that's too. If you don't do enough work on it and it's too mundane, it's too pedestrian, it's gonna fucking suck. If you're like, this is D&D, it's the generic D&D, and there's goblins and shit.
Yeah. Or I had one where we were going to the capital of the empire, and he literally just called it the imperial capital. It's like you see the palace over there, and then the market over there.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do? Like. And actually, I remember one of the players like, well, then I guess we go to the market to buy things. He says, all right, what do you want to buy? Like, is there a magic shop? we start doing all the bad like NES Final Fantasy stuff. Like, well, where is the clinic? The white magic shop.
I get some soft down. Want to buy fire too? Can I buy?
And that's when I suddenly realized. This was when we realized he did base it on the NES Final Fantasy.
Ouch.
We suddenly realized, oh my god.
Yeah.
He literally based this off of this video game.
Yeah.
And actually, he was doing quests. Like
I actually played a D&D game that was literally based on Final Fantasy. I played a black mage, and it lasted all of one session. Yeah.
But it didn't.
It was bad.
But I mean, I don't know if you remember the NES Final Fantasy.
Yes.
But when you have to fight,
How could I forget?
you have to fight 9 pirates to get his pirate ship.
Oh yeah.
We fought 9 pirates and got his ship. And it's like, wow. You do know we have NESs too.
Yeah.
And at one point, one of the other, I wish I could have taken credit for this, but he actually said, so how soon are we going to get to the quest where we restore the 4 orbs of elements? And he, what?
You didn't get that far in the game.
No, we didn't.
Wow.
He never tried to run a game again.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You can make games that don't have enough world building in them, and even games that in the real world, you have to do something unique to them. I mean, I think in your Divine Fire games, the first one, you did some world building by figuring out Grunwald's history, the Doctor's history, and that kind of thing, and that kind of really helped to distinguishing between the normal reality and
also make
shit, Call of Cthulhu.
And remember, also 1944. So
right. So it's historical, so you have to do research on it. Scott Glancy is obviously the king of that. And,
yeah. I mean, I had to look up the names. I mean, I had to look up German weapons from World War II. Right. Because I couldn't say like you pick up his assault rifle. I said it's a Schmeisser submachine gun.
Right. So that's the kind of thing you have to do. Yeah. So you can do too much world building. You can also do not enough world building. So if you want to take up the challenge of it, you kind of have to find the right balance. And of course, every group is going to be slightly different. Some are going to care more about the role playing, the NPCs. Others are going to care more about the logistics and the realism. We're like, well, if we're in a realm where raise dead spells and cure disease spells, why is there a plague going around? Why aren't the cleric? If there should be 5 clerics in a city with 5,000 people with cure disease, why they can cure 8 people per hour? Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So you get that, especially in D&D worlds. The kind of Eberron, I think, is a good D&D setting for saying like, all right, if D&D magic was real, how would society use that magic? How would they change? And it's kind of a good example,
especially if you know exactly what happens after death.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. How does society change? So worshiping the gods isn't exactly a matter of faith. It's like more like a protection racket from the mafia. I'm going to pay into the Anubis.
But I like it. But I like in that one that you also know the gods need you as well.
Right. It's a protection racket. They need you, and you need them. Because you don't want to go into hells.
But then I would wonder, why would anyone become lawful evil if you knew what hell was like?
Well, that's a good point.
I actually heard
some of them they actually become like the devils that torment other people.
Yeah, but most of them. There is in the book the book The Nine Hells, the actual book they did for D&D 3.5.
Yeah,
they actually mention like why would anyone do this? They say because even if they know that they could become a devil, they figure they'll just rocket to pit fiend status
right
in no time flat. They say very few of them will look at a quivering lemure, which is like the lowest form of devil, and think that's going to be them. Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing, like, especially here in society, everyone thinks they're going to be winning the lotto any time. So it's just a matter of time. Yeah. There's no middle class here. There's just embarrassed millionaires that just haven't quite made their riches yet.
By the way, just a fun fact. There was a villain I know that it was a guy that we fought in a D&D game that I really loved. I just have to mention this.
Yeah.
It was a warlord that made a deal with Asmodeus. And of course, but Dealey made this like he would give Asmodeus 20,000 souls if the moment he got to hell, he kept his own mind and personality and soul, but instantly became a pit fiend with no chance of demotion. And what he did, he had all of his men essentially make a pledge, which they didn't know was a pledge to Asmodeus, and led them into battle and got them all killed.
See, I can see that. Like.
So, and then he comes back, and now he is a pit fiend, and he had a signed contract with Asmodeus. So, no matter what he does, he can never be demoted past out of pit fiend.
Wow,
that is a good villain.
That's what Bernie Madoff would do in D&D.
Yeah,
he wouldn't be fucking around with money. He'd be like, "I want to be a pit fiend. Fuck you."
Which I love it. And he leads all of his men to their death.
God, is that a canon D&D or is that just something?
That's something. This GM I was talking to did.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, oh my god, that is an awesome idea.
Yeah, no, I could see that. Like people, stockbrokers and Ponzi scheme people, they would be worshiping, be like, make me a pit fiend. I made a short call. Yeah.
And the thing is, he could use this guy. And we use him like they were like summoning devils to help him do shit. So this guy that was against the general summons him.
Yeah.
Doesn't realize that he's still the general. Just now he's a devil.
Yeah.
And so he starts advising this guy.
Nice.
And it's not only I'm going to damn you, but I'm also getting some petty revenge against you.
Fuck you.
Nice. I loved it. I love that so much.
That's a great idea. That's some great world building there. So. Whenever you're creating a world, you need to do these things. So, any final? Oh, there is one thing you wanted to mention: random name generators.
Yeah, I have actually found. We do the same thing in our group. Some players want names often. They don't. Because I mean, you don't need them all the time. But if you do too much of the shopkeeper and the innkeeper, this guy on the street. If you just do that all the time, people are eventually going to want to talk to someone. And if you actually take the time to talk to them,
like Quintus the pirate is born. I mean, this is the fisherman. I'm sorry,
but if the players, I think they figure if they're going to take the time to interact with this NPC, they want a name.
Yeah,
and I have found that, unless you're like you're in America, 20th century or just
even America is a country of immigrants, Tom.
But you can quickly go, I'm Jones, Chad Jones.
Right, in white bread Springfield. But,
yeah, but if you're like in a fantasy game and you're talking to a kobold who's trying to sell you something,
yeah,
you gotta you're not Chad Jones might be funny, but it probably won't work too well.
Keith the kobold.
Well, that was Keith the kobold.
Yeah, he's cool. Anyway,
just have one of those handy, whether on your.
Or come up with a list of names that you can have and assign to NPCs as necessary.
Or if you're really good on the spot, just picture up, just like conjure up a normal American name and just add some letters to change it around.
There are also random name generators for all kinds of things online. Everything from Lovecraft, Cthulhian names, Cthulhu-esque names, to different nationalities, different historical periods.
Well, actually, I'd use one of those. D&D actually has a name generator for specific races. I'd use an illithid one for a game I was doing.
Oh yeah, no, you kind of have to with those alien kind of names. So yeah, that's a useful thing.
Then again, a mind flayer named Chad Jones would be remembered.
Yeah, no, I'd want to hang out with him. He sounds cool. I'd have a beer with him. This gives you a little idea on world building. If you have any questions or comments about how to construct your own world, feel free to go on our website, Twitter me, post on the Facebook group.
Well, seriously, we'll make you famous.
Forums. There's a Steam group. Message me over Steam, like some people do. So I don't care.
Your message will be heard.
I'll talk to you guys.
Truly,
I'm the man of the people. I'm the man of the fans.
On this night, not a single fuck was given.
Exactly, except for the fans. I give all the fucks to the fans.
Yeah, all the fucks go to you.
Yeah, because you guys are awesome and stuff.
You guys are RPPR.
All right. Don't forget the Kickstarter, Killsplosion. So
speaking of which,
next up, yes, Tom is going to be reading is writing short fiction for Killsplosion. And one of these stories he's already written, and it's about a man in a chicken suit with a vendetta or something.
Well, I would more call it the origin story of a man in a chicken suit.
All right, so and I'll explain, after that we'll have shoutouts, in which I'll explain why we're doing the chicken suit thing, and then of course anecdote. So
stay tuned. Clucking Hell from Killsplosion. Thank you. Devereaux had always considered shopping malls the cathedrals to disposable materialism. Hidden inside the massive monuments to commerce, a drooling consumer could find anything he wanted, from an inflatable barbecue set to a fucking blanket with sleeves. And mini-malls were the larval form of true shopping malls, a commercial grub that never pupated. But the one Devereaux found himself sprinting for seemed like nothing more than a safe haven. It was well after midnight, and the shopping center was closed. That was for the best. Less chance of a goddamn civilian getting in the way. He knew that Dominic's men were barely 20 yards behind him. He clutched the heavy black duffel bag closely, treating it like a lifeline, which, in every way, it was. He had been lucky to see them coming in the first place. He was securing a bag of cash into the trunk of his Honda Civic when they had come out of nowhere. A dozen armed thugs, their coming marked by intermittent gunfire and angry words shouted in check. Devereaux had only a few seconds to reach into his trunk for a weapon before he had to leap over his car to avoid the bullets. He had wanted to grab the bag that contained his twin .45 automatic pistols, but he hadn't had the time to pick or choose. As luck would have it, the bag he grabbed had his squad automatic weapon. An effective weapon, to say the least, but it was disassembled, and the gunmen weren't giving him the courtesy of time to put the weapon together. Devereaux reached the back door to one of those shops, not even bothering to stop. He threw his shoulder into it, and the dead-bolted door cracked open. He felt an agonizing pain shoot through his shoulder, a sure sign that damage had been done. With the ocean of adrenaline flying through him, he barely noticed. He stumbled inside the door and in one fluid motion whirled around to slam the door closed. He realized fate had finally stopped pissing on him when he found a full janitor's cart in the store's back room to brace the door with. It wasn't much, but it would at least make the door look like it was still closed. Devereaux knew he had a few moments while the gunmen started searching the stores. He ran into the store itself and was surprised to find himself in a costume shop, post-Halloween sales banners all over the place. From the mask racks above the counter, werewolves, zombies, skeletons, and even one of those blue things from that movie the last year stared down at him. His gaze only lingered for a split second. He had much to do and little time to do it. He unzipped the bag and roughly emptied the contents onto the carpeted floor. The saw components spilled out, as well as a Kevlar tactical vest and 2 100-round box magazines of 5.56mm bullets. Devereaux had assembled this weapon so many times he could do it by muscle and nerve memory alone. The weapon was in one piece in less than 30 seconds. He attached one of the box magazines to the weapon, threaded the bullets through the chamber, and locked them in place. The saw was ready for fun. As soon as the immediate problem of getting armed was over, Devereaux allowed himself to finally consider other problems. He was inside, and he probably remained anonymous to any civilians, but that couldn't be guaranteed now. He knew that there was a bank across the street, which meant ATM cameras. The mini-mall probably had some cameras he hadn't seen earlier. While he had to survive, he couldn't allow himself to be recorded doing the deed he had to do. If his face was caught on camera, he would be disavowed, which meant a bullet to the head by his own fucking agency. He was putting on his Kevlar vest, thinking about possible solutions, when something caught his eye. A dopey chicken mask, part of a full costume, stared at him from its perch atop the mask rack. He knew that he had only seconds, but an idea hit him. He put the vest aside for the moment, and a rare grin lit up his normally somber face. About a minute later, the gunmen were in the process of checking the stores one by one. They knew that he had to be inside one of them, and they were searching all of them, trying to find the one door that was loose. They had so far checked a party supply store, a Chinese restaurant, a beauty salon, and an ice cream store. All they had left was a sports memorabilia store, a shoe store, a costume shop, and a nail salon. 2 gunmen searched the doors, while 8 more covered the mall itself. 2 more had been sent into the front, in the case their mark tried to escape that way. The 2-man search team was about to test the door to the sports memorabilia store when the back door to the costume shop swung open. Then the damnedest sight any of them had ever seen came strolling out. It was a guy in a yellow chicken costume, with a Kevlar vest strapped onto it, and a large automatic weapon cradled in his arms. The 10 hardened mercenaries could only stare in quiet silence at the goofy chicken man that had suddenly stepped into the pale yellow streetlight of the mini-mall's back drive. Devereaux instantly knew that wearing the costume out was a good idea. Not only would it keep his face hidden from any cameras, but it also distracted the gunmen. They were gawking at him rather than shooting. That 1 second of stillness was all he needed. He raised the saw up and sent a 5.56mm blend of herbs and spices right into the largest group of mercs. They had dressed for speed, so none of them wore vests. The bullets chewed them to pieces, the sound of shell casings hitting the pavement, all but drowned out by the roar of the gun. Some of them tried to get a bead on the chicken man, but they still had to aim. Devereaux just turned the gun on them, holding down the trigger the whole time. Only now, firing a storm of bullets into a mass of scumbags while wearing a dopey chicken costume, did he realize he truly loved his job.
Devereaux with a saw. That was awesome. So when we first do shout-outs, the first one I want to do is the one that will help explain why he's in a chicken suit. Now, I know I've mentioned this game several times on the show.
Ross is a fan. I
really fucking love Killing Floor. Shoot all the zombies. The British-made FPS, co-op, 6 players or more, depending if you're playing a modded server or not. Anyways, they're doing a Halloween event from October 27th to November 3rd. So, it's going to be over by the time this episode's up.
Yeah.
But in this event, they put 6 new achievements on there. And if you got all 6 achievements, you unlocked a new skin for your character. And that skin was a guy in a chicken suit with a tactical vest and a leg holster. And they even have a little story for him. Is like, Special Inspector Edmund Cook went to the Halloween costume of his police station in a chicken costume. And then the monsters came and killed everyone else. So he picked up his gun and murdered them. He's never taken it off since. And for me, I will never pick any other skin if I ever help it. That is the perfect skin to kill monsters and Killing Floor. Because that shows you're unafraid of anything. I'm willing...
You truly don't give a fuck there.
I don't give a fuck about anything. I am a man in a chicken suit with a chainsaw killing monsters, experimental genetically engineered
Cluck,
monsters.
motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly. It's incredible. It's so badass. Because I've always, oscillated between different costumes. Because there's 20 or 30 different skins for your character. But this one is just perfect. And I will wear it forever. Thank you, Tripwire Interactive, for doing this. And Killing Floor is a great game. Buy it. And blah, blah, blah.
I thought I should he should have a backstory why he's wearing that.
Yeah, exactly. A new one, yeah, for Killsplosion, because there'll be Devereaux will be a Killsplosion iconic character. He will be in the art. I'll have Ian Moody and Violet Kirk draw him, and it will be badass.
Awesome.
So, because that shit is great, and we'll post the text of that story on the Kickstarter as an update, so you guys can take a look at that, see how badass.
I got about 6 or 7 more of those coming.
Yeah. So, Tom Church is contributing to this. God, how can you not contribute to this Kickstarter? You horrible monster! You're gonna make Tom cry.
A tear you couldn't see it. It happened so fast.
I know.
A tear just went down my face.
It's a podcast. They're not gonna be able to see anything unless we get the camera.
Then you can see me cry. And
I
I look like
we'll have Tom chopping onions, and that will be like a 10-minute video of Tom Church chopping onions.
And they're all being like, Ross, you son of a bitch!
That will be great. So, you had some shout-outs, or you wanted to...
Yeah, most of all of mine, actually. I'm sorry to say, but actually, fuck it, I'm not. I'm happy to say, are 80s horror movies I've recently picked up.
No, they aren't.
Yes, they are.
No, they aren't.
Yeah, they are.
We discussed this, Tom, before the episode.
Fine. 3 of them are 80s movies. 1 of them is a 90s movie.
Thank
you fucking happy?
Yes.
Well, the first one is an 80s.
is important.
God, shut up. The first one is a movie called Extro. Now, I love a good monster flick. Anyone who knows me will tell you that.
That's shocking.
Yeah. And this one was really good on that, but everything else was so nonsensical. And I mean, it's essentially a dad gets kidnapped by aliens and comes back as one. Yeah. And of course, there's the intermediate scene. Of course, he comes back as this tiny, smaller monster, which then impregnates a woman, and then he emerges fully grown from her.
Wow, that's not normal. That's
no,
really
it's not.
Fucked up.
And then he goes to get his son he's back so he can take his son with him and make him into an alien. And suddenly the kid gets the powers to bring his toys to life. And I don't just mean, it's not like the movie Demonic Toys or anything like that, or like Puppet Master. Like, he has this little toy soldier, which he then makes come to life, and they do this by then having a midget literally dressed as the toy, and he starts impregnating women like his babysitter, so she starts laying alien eggs.
This is like it's like a porn fetish story written on the internet, and then it was made into a movie before.
That has to be it.
I mean, it's like a forced pregnancy. I'm sure there is something like that. Just like, yes, that's what happens. Aliens impregnate all the women,
and they're done by toys.
Yeah, wow, that's really fucked up.
That's the first one. The second one is a movie I know you've seen called The Stuff.
Yeah,
it's literally about a killer dessert.
Right.
Now, what fascinates me is they're not even making the stuff. They're just taking it out from the ground. And I mean, the opening scene shows a guy walking down this industrial road and sees this white stuff bubbling up from the ground. And his first reaction is to kneel down and taste it. He's like, "Wow, this is pretty good. We should sell this."
Yeah.
And
that can't be a shoggoth or anything, like
no.
Up.
And it's got some really great moments of it, violently coming out of people.
Right.
And of course, the crazy military guys. That's always fun.
There's also an iRiff tracks of it. I don't know if it's quality, but we might be able to link to it. So yeah.
Yeah. The last '80s one is a movie called Black Rose.
Yeah.
And it's what I love this because it's obviously was shot as praying to the fears of Christian, really Christian people fearing heavy metal music.
Right.
Because it's literally about a heavy metal band that comes to this town. And their music starts turning kids into demons.
Right.
And that's it. And what I love is, when the band first comes out, when the parents are there to see what it's all about, they're all dressed in these like 80s, white suits.
Right.
Kind of, being a little more like Neil Diamond than a heavy metal group. But in that scene, then when all the parents are like, well, like this isn't that bad, I guess. All the parents then decide everything's okay, and then they leave.
Right.
And as the moment that happens, suddenly it's bondage gear and heavy metal, and suddenly all the women become nymphomaniacs, the guys just become sex-starved maniacs, and then they eventually
yes.
And then
it's
they unleash what was in there.
Okay, there we go.
Subtext.
Yes.
And then the kids literally start becoming actual demons.
Wow.
And the only one that can stop it is one of their teachers.
Of course.
And of course, there's a great scene where he's like trying to teach philosophy, and suddenly all the kids are now wearing goth clothing and piercings. They're like, it says like Black Rose. They're like their philosophy is the only philosophy we need to know. Like, Wow. You are like really subtle playing off of the fears of
subtext.
Yeah. And my final, I'll go ahead and do the final one.
Yeah.
This is the 90s movie, but I mention it because it still looks like an 80s horror movie. Carnosaur.
Yeah.
Literally about a bioplague that makes women give birth to dinosaurs that kills them.
Well, you're on kind of a kick now, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I have a problem. I have a very serious problem.
Yeah, with the pregnancy movies, monster.
I like body horror. What can I say?
Yeah, that's one way.
Well, this one, what I love is, I mean, first it's just.
I think this is a Roger Corman movie too. I think.
Well, some of the best scenes is still like these hippies have chained themselves to this equipment, and then a dinosaur comes up to one of them. He's like, "Greetings, green brother," and then that tears them apart.
Sounds like Corman.
Yeah, but the other thing is the conversations when the government realizes this evil scientist woman's created this plague to wipe out the entire female population of the world, and the government they don't go in there to consider like, well, we need to quarantine this whole area. It's like it says,
wait, why are they making this plague?
This mad scientist woman is.
Why is she doing that?
She wants to destroy humanity.
Okay, and the government's funding her?
Yeah, they didn't know she was doing that kind of bioweapons. It was supposed to be just good old-fashioned kill people. Not create dinosaurs. And then the dinosaurs would then kill off the male humans.
I see.
But when the government people find this out, they don't think, okay, like, or a cure or, or wipe it out. It says, if all the entire female population of the world is wiped out, we could redesign a better female. One, it's like one subservient to us.
Wow, this is like the horror movie directors have issues with women. I know this is shocking, but wow. And I looked at the Wikipedia, and it was made in 1993, same year as Jurassic Park. She was obviously trying to
and like Jurassic Park, it spawned sequels.
Yeah.
That had nothing. That had nothing to.
That's a good word there, Tom.
That had nothing to do with the original movie.
Of course. Oh, God. So
actually, but no, I also have that. I think you would like the sequel.
Yeah.
Because the final battle is with a huge T-Rex, and they're fighting it with heavy machinery, bulldozers, and construction vehicles.
That's an in-joke. I know it probably mentioned before in the podcast, but the idea is, the one skill in Call of Cthulhu that I've always been wondering is operate heavy machinery like that. It's like the redheaded stepchild of skills in Call of Cthulhu, like even accounting and photography
law
get more use in that. Like I actually now finally figure out a scenario that is gonna like make that the heroic skill of choice. And operate heavy machinery using that to fight evil, fight the Cthulhu mythos. Bulldozers and cranes, and I'll just spoil it now. It's going to take place in a slaughterhouse.
You ever been in one of those places?
Yeah, so
there's some scary ass shit there.
Yeah, there's a lot of industrial heavy machinery. So this is gonna be fun.
But yeah, my shout outs the next episode will probably be along similar lines.
Okay. One probably the shout out for the next episode is gonna be Red State, or the new Kevin Smith movie, the horror movie.
Oh my God, yes.
I haven't seen that yet, but I want to, because I actually talked to a friend of mine who said it was very, very good. It had some really good acting performances in it. So hopefully I'll be able to review that for the next episode, which we'll probably do before the 21st, because that's when the Kickstarter ends. You only have 19 days left, 18 days probably by the time this episode is posted. So contribute to the Kickstarter. Oh my God, you guys!
This is not a shout out, but yeah, we better do that then, so I have some time to get Skyrim out of my system.
Okay.
Which is coming in 9 days.
Oh, yeah, the new Elder Scrolls game.
Yeah, I will be sequestered for some time.
Okay, fair enough. You're not the only one. So I'll just go instead of alternating. I'll do my shout-outs. First off is going to be Danger 5. It's a new web series that's coming out. This is actually the same people who did Italian Spider-Man.
Ross made me excited and sad at the same time with this.
I'm not going to spoil anything. Well, I'll spoil one thing. There are dinosaur Nazi people in it, and machine guns, and Hitler, and weapons.
I can't possibly...
And lots of smoking.
Yeah, I can't possibly describe to you what I felt when I watched that.
Yeah.
It was like being inside Joy. Like I could wrap myself in it like a blanket.
So that's going to be starting up in the next... I'm looking forward to seeing the actual web series.
That's from Star Trek Generations, by the way.
Okay. Fair enough. So
you didn't know that, did you?
No, I didn't. I
know movies.
You do know movies. You know movies very well. If I get you and Thad in a room, you could have an entire conversation based on Ghostbusters quotes without actually saying
that could be
original world.
Ross, that could actually be a future Kickstarter reward.
have-
It's like we will actually have a 30-minute conversation in nothing but movie quotes.
Oh God! If we have to get the camera, we can do it. So RPPR listeners,
Come on.
you can control RPPR for a week. Have I mentioned that? Like, you can actually tell us what to play.
We will give up our free will to you.
Yes, $200, and you can make us play anything except Fatal. You can make us play Cinnabar or Phoenix Command or Teenagers from Outer Space. We've mentioned this a lot. I'm just, but I'm a shameless whore. Couple more, 3 more. One is another video called Meta Chaos, which is just a really abstract, really freaky 8 minutes of insanity. And the reason I mention it is because I based a Call of Cthulhu adventure on that video.
Did?
And after Tom saw that, you would see, it was pretty creepy.
Yeah. That's people going into weird places to do things.
Something like that, yeah. It's
not quite as good as going into a public pool at night.
Yeah, fantasy again. Great song, great
song.
Yeah,
there was a video, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was. I think your eyeballs exploded and turned into fire. So yeah.
I saw something.
Yeah. Next up, No More Room in Hell, which is a Half-Life 2 first-person shooter mod. I haven't gotten
Thank you, George Romero.
The beta was just released a few days ago. I haven't gotten it yet because I've been playing Payday the Heist, which I haven't played enough to really review one way or the other. But No Room. The reason I mention this is, one, obviously zombies. It's made by the same people who did Zombie Panic Source, which I put a good number of hours in. But this one's a lot better. Now, the reason even you would like it, not just because they're zombies and it's a co-op thing. One of the character models is a dead ringer for Walter from the Big Lebowski, a.k.a. Adam Scott Glancy. So you can play, and the trailer, which I'll link to,
son of a fucking bitch,
is Adam Scott Glancy getting bitten, shooting zombies, and then being bitten by a zombie. And I'm like, I'm sold. I want to be,
Have you told him about this?
I posted it on his Facebook page. He's like, son of a bitch. It was pretty great. So it's a free mod.
Adam Scott Glancy is cool, but Adam Scott Glancy as a zombie, goddamn.
Or shooting zombies.
Or shooting zombies.
Being Scott Glancy shooting zombies. What, it's like Valhalla, the modern day Valhalla. So,
it's like, let me tell you about U-boats.
Exactly. Finally, he actually did upload some actual plays for RPPR, and I'm telling him right now to figure out how he wants them edited, because one recording is like 7 hours long, but there's like gaps in it, so he's going to give me some time codes based on your Divine Fire materials.
Oh, yeah, he mentioned this to me.
Yeah, so as soon as I get the notes from him, we'll be able to put that on the podcast, and won't that be great?
I want to hear this.
Yeah, I know, right? Finally, I mentioned this before in the episode years ago, but a book that I started but I haven't picked up and started. Now I'm about halfway through. I'm going to finish it. It's called McMafia. It's about global crime syndicates today, and it's a fascinating book because it talks about the rise of how the fall of communism actually made the Russian mafia what it is. Before actually, believe it or not, the Russian mafia wasn't as scary as it was. Like back when the KGB was really around and in power in the Soviet Union years, guess what? The KGB was a lot more powerful than the Russian mob or the Russian criminal.
And they didn't like anyone hoeing in on their territory.
Exactly. So they kept the mobsters in check. But when capitalism came around and the Soviet Union fell, the Soviet bureaucrats didn't know how to manage capitalism or how to manage capitalist.
John Stewart said it best in America the Book, the audio book.
Yeah.
It says with the fall of communism, the Soviet Union, Russians raced to embrace Western style capitalism, but much like Lenny in Of Mice and Men, these retarded man children didn't know their own strength.
Right. And that of course led to massive corruption and crime syndicates. And what's interesting is that because the state was so weak in those early days, is people actually turned to these growing mafias, these growing crime syndicates, to actually manage contract law for them, to keep things in check. So they were actually private law enforcement for these business people starting up. And then now I'm about halfway through talking about Indian gangsters, and it's really interesting. You could do a whole campaign on this idea of they have in India police groups that are called encounter specialists, and what they do, which sounds kind of weird, but translate that as police death squad. What they do is they go around cities like Mumbai and basically find criminals and fucking shoot them in the head. however possible. Like there's one photo of a guy's like, this is Inspector so and so. He has over 100 kills. You know, he's like, they just go around fucking straight up murdering criminals. And if that isn't like a tactical combat RPG premise, like you're a police squad, go out and yeah, it's Judge Dredd, but for real. You know, I mean, they just go out and shoot people. But you know, the gang.
I am the law.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just interesting and fascinating to me seeing all the interconnections between governments, spy agencies, like the whole Mumbai Indian underworld is sort of a battle between Indian and Pakistani intelligence agencies. There's like a proxy war. I mean, it's really fascinating stuff.
I mean, I've actually kind of heard that, yeah, in like some places, you know, it's kind of like Vegas in the 60s and 70s that it's like, you know, you'll never have mob violence there.
Yeah.
Because that must stay a tourist trap for all the money to come in.
Right.
So,
well, actually, it's Dubai that's like that.
Well, Dubai is what I meant.
Dubai is like that. And I use this also in Call of Cthulhu game. Dubai is become like all these gangsters from around the world have made their billions or millions or billions and put it in Dubai so they can have a place to relax. And there have been a few murders, but not many. There's very little.
They don't like it.
Yeah, exactly. But they go out and there's, you know, Mumbai, hundreds of murders, you know, between police and gangsters, whatever. But yeah, and Russia, of course, you know, if you aren't dying of alcoholism, it's dying of violent death or something. So it's a fascinating stuff. So if you want to do a modern crime campaign or a post-apocalyptic campaign or any number of things, it's got a lot of material in it. So the beginning, there's a lot of material at the beginning about Russian gangsters. It gets a little dry, like talking about Gazprom and like India, you know, all the various complex financial schemes they use. But like, so what? You skip around and get to the Mumbai stuff, and like, or Bombay, you know, back as it was known back then. And I could talk all night about this, but that's the last shadow I have. So
fantastic,
Mafia, great stuff. So finally, we have our anecdote. So Tom, this is the game that you ran. You recently ran Eclipse Phase.
I did.
Yeah,
I was originally planned as a one shot, turned into a two-parter. Tends to happen, but whatever.
Yeah.
And it was it took place on Atlantica, which is from the Panopticon book, which is essentially an ocean inside a hollowed out asteroid.
Right.
Primarily populated by like aquatic uplifts and modified splicers.
Right.
But I like the idea of it's essentially a heist in an underwater setting, and it had Ross, Jason, and Aaron. And I believe Thad joined in for the second half.
Yeah.
And it's...
Well, David played in.
It was David.
David and Thad joined in for the second session as the heavies. Mm-hmm. They both played. Like Thad played in the second session a Reaper Morph with a Cyrock AI, so he's a very polite murder death machine. And then David as a guy...
Well, the other pre-gen I did.
Yeah, the other pre-gen. Yeah. So, so I was playing the stealth guy, the Solid Snake, literally, since I was in the Slitheroid morph.
Yeah.
And it went well. I had a lot of fun in it.
I mean, I discovered some of the main stuff. The main problem is getting used to the tech in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, because forking, cortical stacks, mesh, hacking rules, it gets pretty complex. And just there's so many different types of tech, like... You know, like nano disassemblers versus particle beam cannons and shit like that. What do you use? How ubiquitous is surveillance tech and shit like that? Yeah, there's a lot to keep track of.
But it was my first attempt. Everyone said it went well. So
yeah. In the second session, it started going a little like we were going like pretty crazy.
I saw that happen.
Storm the main building sneak into the main building to get the MacGuffin out. Aaron held a doctor hostage.
Killed a patient.
Yeah, the doctor was performing heart surgery. And then Aaron shot the patient and then talked to the doctor. And then the guards came in, took him down. And then we went to rescue Aaron. They shot Aaron in the head. So we had to retrieve his cortical stack. And of course we killed all the guards. And then as we jumped on the little rail or train to get us away, there's like one generic NPC who was just randomly there. It
was a technician and one of the science staff.
Yeah, one of them didn't make it, and one of them we kidnapped with us. And it's kind of turned into a little bit Gaga-esque, as like we went back to the criminal underworld. He's just this poor guy, like, oh god, I'm terrified, and then he passes out. I forgot exactly why he passed out, but he passed out, and I'm like, let's give him drugs. Like because my character is a scum, is the do whatever, I don't give a fuck faction. So he's like, this will be funny, let's give him drugs. And the drug I looked up was schizo, which
essentially mimics schizophrenia,
paranoid schizophrenia, and then murder, and then comfort. So he's just zoned out on combat enhance. And
but it was because of that I now have my next game project.
Right.
I am, in fact, I'm going to announce it here. I'm going to run a Lady Gaga 4.x or whatever in Eclipse phase. And so you will have the return of Lady Gaga, Major Lazer.
I will make my own Major Lazer. And you will probably be wearing a chicken suit. Armor that looks like a chicken suit.
Well, of course it will.
Yes. And I will put a lot of points into dancing. And,
you better.
And beam weapons, because
he
uses a laser.
The next time I run a game for this group,
yeah,
that's what it's going to be.
It's going to be fucking epic. So yeah.
Now, of course, I won't do this if you, the listeners, don't want me to.
Yeah, so post comments about whether.
But now, if you would like me to run a Lady Gaga game in Eclipse phase, well, then go ahead and send me your messages, any input you might have, and
post on our forums.
Post on our forums, and I will, if enough people want me to do this, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, I don't know how popular this idea is going to be.
We'll find out.
The same madness, just with much higher technology, and everything's wireless.
Yep. So
including your soul.
Something like that. So that'll be something to look forward to in 2013, because I'm such a horrible monster. I'm supposed So I think that ends this episode.
I think it does.
I know.
It feels right.
It feels right. So this is Ross Payton here.
And Tom.
And this has been Roleplaying Public Radio, episode 66, Building Better Worlds.
We shall be back.
What makes a man? Is it the power in his hands? Is it his quest for glory? Give it all you got to fight to the top, so we can know your story. Now you're a man, man. Now you're a man, man. You are now a man, you're a man. Now you're a man. Live it.